And we are back. Hey, it's Kimberlee and welcome back to my channel. I make videos on all things lifestyle on a budget. And continuing the conversation with budgets, I want to rewind and start with you've decided to make a change. Where do you begin? So if you saw my most recent video, I was talking about all the steps you need to take to save money and fast. I jotted through a bunch of things that are super helpful. So take a look at that video if you haven't yet. If you're like, I want to save money, I don't have time to get a job right now, but I know that there's money around me and there's things that I spend on that I should probably stop spending on and that'll save me some money, go and check that out right now and then come here. But if you saw in that video, the very first thing I mentioned before we got into it is that you need to track your expenses. You need to know what you're spending on a daily basis. What that ends up helping out with is figuring out your budget. Whenever people talk about budget, it can be overwhelming at first. If you think of it as limiting, it's gonna feel that way. But if you think of it as awareness, it's so much more helpful to have a general idea of how much money you're spending on your bills, how much are you spending when you're out on the go, how much are you spending on others, how much are you spending on yourself. Everything is just to help you understand where you are and create a little bit more awareness with your finances. I made a couple videos when I moved here into my apartment to talk about bills and how to figure out how all these new expenses were going to fit into my budget. That's what really made me realize that I had to look at it because I needed to know where things were going to fit in because you got to pay your bills. That's the most important thing. So in today's video, I'm going to break down how you can track your expenses, what exactly that means, what it entails, and obviously you can customize it to what works for you, but this is what works for me and I kind of eased into what I do now. Tracking your expenses literally means writing down every single thing that you spend your money on a daily basis. I know that sounds like a lot, but once you stop spending, it actually won't be a lot and it'll be very easy. So there's a few ways that you can do this. I'll just mention them right off the list. The first thing you can do is get a physical planner. I freaking love those things. Those are my favorites. It reminds me of being in school. It just reminds me of just staying organized. You have a monthly and weekly planner. What I used to do is that with the monthly overview, I would write down when all my bills are due, and then I would actually write down what the total expenses were for each day. What I would do in the weekly sections where you have like the little blurbs for the daily is that I would write down every expense there. The second thing that you could do, which I recently took down and put up pictures of my friends instead, because I was like, we can evolve from this. We have another way that we're tracking, is to use one of the monthly calendars. So I don't know about you, but again, I just always have a monthly calendar. I don't know, I like to see what's going on in the month. I like to see the overview versus looking at my phone sometimes. So what I would do with that is same deal. Write when things are due, and then I would write down the total expenses every single day so that I could see overall what I'm spending on, how's it going each day as I go. You can also just get a notebook and write everything down and kind of customize it yourself. The main thing what I switched to start doing, it's actually easier for someone that is on the go because like I mentioned, you really want to get in the habit of tracking those expenses instantly. Right after you make that purchase, get in the habit of writing what it is, and if we're always on the go, we're probably always next to our phones, and I use my phone to track my expenses. Yes, I do have the Every Dollar app, which I've mentioned in a couple of videos here. That's how I do what I spend in a month video. That app is really great for the important things that you need to spend your money on, but you don't have a calendar with it. So what I do instead is I use my calendar that's on my phone. So I'm gonna screen record and I'm gonna take you through my process of tracking my expenses every single day. Okay, so I go into my Google Calendar. I, as you can see, love to organize things. It's very helpful to set reminders and do different colors. So how I set this up, I set it for 10 to 11 every day, repeats daily. Say I took the train, I would type in MTA. I probably went both ways, so I would say 550. Now what you do is you would just save it, and what you want to make sure to do is that you just save it for this event, because what would happen is that if you saved it for this and the following events or all events, it would go and put that little MTA blurb on all of them. We don't want that. You just want it for that one day. So I would click that and then it would save for that one day. And I just keep doing that throughout the day. So I'm just going to show you like a random day right here. This is my expenses for Sunday that recently happened. As you can see, I took the train, went to Dwayne Reed, also took a Lyft, and also made a purchase on Amazon. I write the price next to it, of course, and then as you can see, I add up and I write down next to the expense of that day what the total was. That's an extra step you can take. If you just want to take a quick glance and see what you spent that day, you don't have to go back in and start mentally adding everything up or, you know, adding it in a calculator. You can just see what you spent that day. So let's take a look back at where I was with my expenses when this first started. For me, when I first started this journey, I didn't have any way of tracking my budget with my bills or anything like that. What I did was that I wanted to know how much I was spending in a week. that was where I started. I was curious of what's happening in a week. I remember one of my other videos, I was like, I want to not spend like over $500 or something. It started like that, where I was like, I just don't want to spend $500. How about that? Let's see what we're working with. So I started going in, and every single day I would type out what I was doing or how much money I was spending, not really thinking too hard. And that's where I started to realize, oh, okay, you're doing a lot. I started last July, and let's see what was going on. The first day was July 26th. I took the bus, I had some lunch, I had some Van Leeuwen, I was spending $50-something in Amazon. I'm laughing because this is what I was talking about in the last video, where I was like, we're not spending money, you know, just out of nowhere just because. And I'm looking, I'm like, I felt like having lunch, I felt like having ice cream, and that ice cream was expensive. And I got some Amazon. Then the next day I spent like $40. I took a ferry, I ordered DoorDash, and then I had some snacks. I'm assuming I was at the vending machine because I was spending $1.25 3 times. The next day I took a dance class, I was shopping at Target, and hold fast, I don't know what that is, but I spent some money on that. Thursday I went to Trader Joe's. Friday I went to Whole Foods. I went to Down Under Coffee. That means I probably went to ballet class because I was near there. I went to the deli, spent $9, and then Amazon again, $61. Then on that Saturday, I went to H Mart, spent $12. And then that Sunday, $4 on a seltzer, a ferry round trip, and then I ordered food again. And that's how my week went. This is exactly what I was talking about and needing control. Why was I spending money at Amazon every other day? Why was I eating out every single day? Why did I spend $11 on ice cream? Because that place is expensive. It's good, but it's expensive. I think the next week is where I started to get things in control, because I see I have a 0 expense day. I spent $40 on my Metro card. That's before I started just buying single purchases. The next day I spent $81 at TJ Maxx, $15 at a coffee shop, at Amazon again. That's, oh my gosh. I'm just like, this is crazy. That is like 3 or 4 purchases in a row for Amazon. That's a lot. But I was getting better because I had a 0 expense day on that Thursday, so it's much better. Friday, I ordered from Uber Eats and $47. Oh my gosh, but things are better now. Things are better. When I was tracking it weekly, I would write down on the last day the weekly expense. So in that week, the total that I spent was $286, which that's actually not bad. It's unnecessary because, as you saw, that stuff, I was just out in the streets every single day, like eating stuff. $286 I would say is not terrible, but I know that things did get better. Weekly really helped me to figure out the fluctuation of how much I'm spending and in the moment. Now I consider it out of control because it was all unnecessary purchases. Like I mentioned again in my last video, that was me walking home from work, walking home from dance class or something, and just being around so much food and being like, oh, I'll just grab here. Oh, I'll just get that here. Even though I have groceries at home, you're just inundated with so many advertisements and just temptations, etc. But I'm just laughing because I'm like, wow, it's so much more different now, and it's for the better. When you're starting out, start with the weekly. It's so helpful. It just gives you an idea of where you are at, but get an idea of that amount that you're spending, and that's when you start creating your budget. You're looking at what you've been spending money on, and then you give yourself a reality check. Did I really need to spend all that money, or could I have done less? And that's where things like the parameters from the last video came in for me. I didn't need to be at Amazon every freaking week, multiple times a week. That was insane. I'm still thinking about that because that's just craziness. But it did help me to figure out, whoa, let's pull that back. And that's where I said I started doing once a month purchases. And then that just kind of faded away because I stopped being so addicted to it, basically. The goal, you want to be in control of your finances. You want to make sure that you're on top of things, that you have an idea of things. It's just creating an overall awareness. I was very hesitant before doing it. I felt like it was very daunting. Let's have a conversation down below. If you're beginning to track your expenses, if you have any questions, comment them down below. I'd be happy to help you out with that. If you have another way that you like to track your stuff, comment that down below and share so that other people can tap into that as well. I think if anything, this is the easiest, simplest way of figuring out your budget without having to sit down and like look at your bank statement or something. You can do that, but I think it's easier to just see what you're doing in the moment and then look back and reflect on that, because that's kind of like a real-time answer. I'm excited to bring you guys the changes in my credit score since all of this has been occurring. That'll be in a video coming up, but for now, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.